Hey everybody, how are you? Justin Bell here with Drive To Win, presented by the Wynn Las Vegas and powered by Mobil 1 for the love of driving. Well, I don't know about you, but I had a pretty full-on Formula 1 weekend, obviously with the race down there in Mexico, just a few hours south of the last one in Austin. So really staying with the whole Americas thing. But I actually hurt my back last week on a TV shoot. So I found myself with the perfect excuse to pop myself down on the sofa and actually watch every single session from practice 1, practice 2. And it really did give me this amazing story arc of the whole weekend. And those of you that do that will probably agree. It makes it quite fascinating because you see how symbiotic some of the flow is for some of the teams and how chaotic it is for others. But when it came to the race weekend down there in Mexico, obviously it was pretty hot. It's at a crazy place for them to go and race. I know that they have some issues with security for some of the top drivers, but mainly not for their safety in terms of, violence. It's really just the fact that the fans are so passionate and the access to the drivers is so desperately sought after that, especially if your name's Sergio Perez, it's pretty hard to get around. It was Perez Mania with over 400,000 people in attendance over the weekend. And you could just see the stunning shots of that stadium area with the crowds going up. It looked like 300 people high and just the noise. Did you hear that noise? And he said he can hear it from inside the helmet. It is a phenomenon that I have never experienced. If, my mum shouting, yay, go JB, it didn't really count. But when you've got, towards 500,000 people shouting your name, cheering. It was resonating just, through the TV and all the way through to us. So really, really cool. I did enjoy qualifying, actually. And normally we don't talk much about qualifying, but it did set the scene for the unpredictability, the absolutely outstanding individual attempts right now to get a race points, to try and get on the podium, just to try and get in the top 10. And it just shows how much there is to play for at this time of the year. And with that Ferrari locking out the front row, I was really cheering them on when, just because obviously I was with them 2 weeks ago in New York City at that Ferrari gala. And I kind of felt that I had a little bit more bond. They probably don't share that, but it was just really good to see them knowing how much effort they put in. And Charles Leclerc displaying that singular ability he has over one lap. It was his 22nd pole in Formula 1, if you can believe that, which is a pretty nifty record. And he really does have that pace over one lap. And, I think as Will Buxton said on his grid walk, they don't really have the fastest car. They probably don't even have the second or third. Maybe they have the fourth fastest car. So it's a real strategy game for them. But I did like the way they were off the line. Daniel Ricciardo with his shock fourth place. And that's what I love when I said I like following the sort of ebb and flow of qualifying and practice. He was fast all the way through. And then you go, wow, he did just go and lock in that fourth place, out qualifying Sergio Perez in the AlphaTauri, which cannot have gone down very well with Sergio's camp. But it just shows that Daniel is back and in this liberated form that we do see from drivers when they've spent a year out. Look at Fernando Alonso. He took a year off, did won Le Mans, did sports cars, came back and he just had this, maybe more understanding of his love for it. And having taken a break away from the schedule, came back just ready to do good. Obviously with Daniel, it was his opportunity after, breaking his hand and having to sit on the sidelines. So that was really good, wasn't it? It does show he deserves a seat in Formula 1 next year, which he will get. But will it be better than the AlphaTauri? I don't know. But certainly for him to showcase how good that car is, that's fantastic. Out qualifying Perez, though, that was great for Daniel. And isn't it amazing how an instant, a moment can define a weekend for someone? For one person, it means that they're going, for Daniel, it would have been showcasing the best qualifying result for the AlphaTauri all year. And then for Sergio, it just wasn't good at all to be outperformed on your home track. And, that the partisan crowd were really hoping, really willing it into existence. And you've got to remember that he is an amazing talent and has won a lot of races and the most successful Mexican driver, arguably. But they were thinking, will he win at home? Can he win at home? And that is the mantra, that is the momentum of energy that was following him that I think caused what we saw on the first lap. Get to that in a minute. With George Russell 8th and Lewis 6th, they weren't happy. But again, that story arc, they're not good in their qualifying, but they come together, especially Lewis in the race, in a phenomenal way. And I know I said it last week, but it just shows to me how diligent they are at Mercedes in getting the cars, their race strategy and the tire selections and everything right. McLaren, though, had a real crappy weekend, didn't they, to start off with? And Piastri, his car, as Will again said, I think, probably the second fastest car on the grid overall performance over the last few races. But landed up 7th. And then you have Lando, who got knocked out of Q1 because, as he said, I kind of got caught out on timing, on strategy, on getting out there, and then he made a mistake. And that was just like an honesty to that. I guess him going in, he's quite chippy, isn't he? He goes, chippy is a British word for, he's got a little edge to him. And I think it was just, as he said, I made a mistake, didn't I? I just blew it. And at least he knows that, but it doesn't make you feel any better. But it was very good to see. We have one of the 2022 car in this showroom next to my Blue Wire Studios here at the Wynn, and it is the Alfa Romeo. And for me, that's one of the prettiest cars that we have on show next door, and one of the prettiest cars out on the grid. And to see, Bottas in 9th and Zhou Guanyu in 10th, rounding out the top 10 of the qualifier, I just thought that was really good and a really good promise for them. It was whether they could convert it in the race. So the conclusion, obviously, after that qualifying was, some upsets. Ferrari at the front, Max right behind in 3rd, Sergio ready to do his thing. The Red Bulls notoriously kind of good off the line. What was it setting up for the race? And I'm not a betting guy, but obviously with Max's pace, he'll get to the front at some point. But what was going to unfold on his way there? And everybody, remember, has so much to play for. I mean, literally everybody moving down 2nd place onwards. Max, his version of cruising is just locking in another win and fastest lap and all those things he wants. But for everyone else, too much money on the line, careers on the line. So it's like knowing the end of the movie, but the script's kind of changing every week. And I think that's what makes it so exciting as we're heading into these last 4 races. But the race did really yield some surprising elements, which I mean we'll go through with my guest in a minute. Oh, my guest, by the way, Andrew Marriott, one of the most respected commentators in the world of motorsports. He's been around for probably 50 years, and there isn't a driver that you've ever heard of that he hasn't interviewed, had a relationship with professionally at the racetrack, and wonderful stories and great insight. So I'm looking forward to that. But let's go back to the podium. Obviously was like a repeat of last week, but without the disqualifications. And Max, then Lewis, and then Charles Leclerc. And it was, I actually did predict that to my girlfriend at the beginning of the race. But when it comes to the stats, there was so many things. It's like, as I said, a cascade every week of things that happen at this time of the season. Verstappen now leads by 251 points. Pew! He's headed off. He's in the woods without anyone else. 31 wins he's had since the start of last season, which just is mind-numbing. And he's now 5th on the all-time laps led in Formula One with 2,684. Stunning. Verstappen and Schumacher, this is a funny one, have actually now finished 1-2 in whichever order you choose, 36 times in their career in Formula One against each other. Again, most drivers can't even imagine winning one race or being on the podium once. These two just have 36 first seconds between them. And it was Lewis's 65th fastest lap, which is only 12 behind Michael Schumacher's all-time records and Charles Leclerc's 100th start for Ferrari. So many things. And there's a lot of elements that were interesting in this race for me. And I'm looking forward to chatting about them with Andrew. But I just hate the fact that they have to be so gentle on the tires. And that's why, even though there was a red flag in the middle of the race, it changed everything from that point on. Not quite late enough in the race to make it an all-out sprint to the finish. But I think, as we saw, a couple of races ago, when you do have that reset towards the end of the race, I love the fact that it has to be trying to be as qualifying pace as best you can for every lap. And that, as I think Jensen Button and David Coulthard said on the TV, that's for them what Formula One should be about. It is only about being the fastest on every lap, the fastest car. So I think some of that misses. Let me know if you disagree when it comes to tires, strategies. It does keep a lot more people employed on the pit wall, but I think it should just be all out, flat out. Well, on my Uber ride in this morning from the airport, I really saw the racetrack coming together here in Las Vegas. And it was I've commented on it, driving down the strip, seeing the light gantries, seeing all the hospitality coming down actually the back road past the Sphere. In between the barriers they had some road control. And as I'm driving down there, I'm looking up, I'm seeing familiar safety wall and the catch fencing. And then up on the left-hand side, I could see all these hospitality suites. And again, this, rigging that you have, and all the way down where all these lights, every 10, 15 feet, all the way round the circuit. Just imagine that infrastructure. But you can really feel it coming together. You can see where they got the access roads. You can just feel this whole thing. And any minute now, they're going to be tying up those loose ends, and the banner signage all goes up, especially after Mexico. It'll be coming back up here. The minute it arrives, this place is going to start looking like a Grand Prix track, if it doesn't already. So wild. But saying that, obviously with the Heineken Silver Grand Prix of Las Vegas, so much going on here at the Wynn. I actually just was about to post a picture. I couldn't believe it. Yet another Formula One car, this time a Red Bull show car, is in the middle of all the roulette tables right there in the Wynn Casino. And while I was taking my little selfie, I could hear people's voices as they stopped. And it's kind of stroke of genius, really, from the marketing department. People were stopping, taking their photographs, and realizing things as they were the proximity to a Formula One car, perhaps for the first time. My God, look at those wings. Is that what they're called? Look at the size of those tires. Look how small the side profile is. They didn't use those words. They just said, look how thin they are. And it was really exciting for me to experience firsthand, maybe other people's first time being around a Formula One car and realizing that's what this race is all about. It is bringing that drive to survive energy, the proximity to Formula One, the familiarity with these drivers, these superstars and everybody and the key personnel. It's all coming to life here in Las Vegas. Maybe that's my best way of describing this race. And obviously here at the Wynn, not just do we have all the cars, but the red carpet events here. A lot of drivers are staying here. There's a Netflix golf tournament on the Tuesday, and it's all kicking off here at the Wynn. So many ways to check it out. Lots of information on the website. So don't forget to go to it. winlasvegas.com/experiences/Formula One. Yeah, it's getting hot. It's only 20 days away till the race. Ooh, lots happening. Well, let's bring in my guest to talk about the race and a lot more. Andrew Marriott. We've actually co-hosted the Le Mans 24 Hours from the pit lane multiple times. We've done it in the heat, the rain, the dry, the wind, all through the night. And we'd sort of tag team in the middle of the night. I'd go and try and get an hour or two sleep, and Andy would head out to the pit lane. Pit Lane Andy is his Instagram handle. And he, as I said, is a guy that has met nearly every driver who's ever got behind the wheel professionally of a race car. He is a true reporter in the old school sense. He's worked for Speed Channel when they were on Fox Sports, and he actually was the pit lane guy for ESPN in Formula One here in America for quite a few years. So he is the guy, and I can't wait. It's like having me granddad on the show. Sorry, Andy. Anyway, Andy, really good to see you, and thanks for staying up so late on a Monday night.
I'm pretty good. Just had a great weekend and a bit of gone back to the old hobby of rallying and went in a Lancia Stratos on a demonstration event celebrating the RAC famous British round of the World Championship of the RAC Rally, but also celebrating a win we had in 1976. Riding in a Lancia Stratos with my old mate Andy Dawson, who I won the big event in all those years ago. And I thought the old boy had lost it, but he went very fast indeed.
Well, what have you been up to then, Andy?
Well, just had a great weekend. Reliving old rally memories, actually. Back in 1976, I won a rally with a guy called Andy Dawson, a Lancia Stratos. And we went back in a Lancia Stratos on an event, and it was absolutely fantastic. And we went very quickly indeed.
And that's right. Now I can see your face, Andy. Look at the camera. That's it. There, I've got you now. It's not pretty, but it is you. There we are. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I know. Let's
it's
talk.
Not pretty, it's me. And then I think I'm moving out of the street.
I don't think you got that frame thing right there, mate. I can see anyone that's watching this and not listening.
You know, it's old age, mate. It's old age. How about that? That's
there
a bit
you
better.
are.
Look,
Do not move.
That?
You're looking joyous right now.
Move.
You look a bit like the guy who the Captain Spock. It's looking good.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Well, listen. I wanted to grab you because you've been around this sport for 50 or 60 years now, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's got to be 60 years, mate. Oh, no, it's ridiculous.
Whoa! And you've seen them come and you've seen them go. And every driver, like I said in my interview, it seems that you've either interviewed in one way or another. And let's talk about Formula One, where we are right now and what we're witnessing this year. Because obviously, I've talked a lot about Max's domination. Well, you've seen a lot of dominating eras, haven't you, through the years? Who do you compare this to?
Not many like this, is it? I have to say Jim Clark, when he was in the best Lotus, dominated like that. Jackie Stewart to a degree, I think. And, of course, Lewis Hamilton. And, it was different, wasn't it, with Senna and Prost, because you had two great guys in the same team. And that split it up a bit. So, we've seen some people, but you've got to say that Verstappen's right up there on a cracking drive. You have to say, absolutely cracking drive, wasn't it, yesterday?
Yeah. I mean, he did. I mean, let's break it down a bit. I mean, I love the way you say that because it does bring up something I'll come back to about teammates. But the start, Ferrari locked out the front row. They obviously didn't get off the line as well as the two Red Bulls. What's your take on what happened there at the front? Because for me, I mean, Leclerc had no way to back out. Otherwise, we'd have had two Red Bulls airborne and 3 into 1 doesn't go. So, I mean, what did you yell from the sofa, you bloody idiot? Or who did you think, I mean, how did that unfold for you?
Oh, Perez is an idiot. He was carried away by the crowd, he was on his home territory. He's obviously, it's a bit of a question mark hanging over him with Red Bull, wanted to prove that he was still an ace and actually proved he was an idiot. And he admitted it afterwards, didn't he? In the interviews, he admitted it. He went for it, but, a race is never won, as you know, Justin, on the first corner, and that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine you in the pit lane. You wouldn't have held back from asking him about how much of a prat he felt, would you?
I know, we wouldn't, would we? But, he's a lovely guy, I feel sorry for him, really. But, he hasn't quite got it, has he? Let's face it.
No, he did, but he doesn't right now. Yeah. I mean,
look, our old mate, David Hobbs, great expression. He's good, but he's not great. That's Perez, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And it extends to a few others on the grid too. But I think you're right about the fans. I mean, hearing the roar of the fans built up. I mean, he was right there, out-qualified by Daniel Ricciardo in the AlphaTauri.
Wasn't that fantastic?
Oh,
Danny Rick's back. It was terrific.
Yeah, really, really great. I will tell you what I did think. I was talking about it with my producer, Jeremiah, before the show. I reckon, though, that if Perez hadn't hit Leclerc, he would have hit Max going into the next corner. Because, right, if he'd survived that one, I reckon he'd have taken him out on the left because he's going, I'm going to lead.
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of wild. It really is. So, yeah, I mean, what do you think when it came to like the booing at the end for Charles Leclerc, though? What's you're an old school guy. You've heard all this before. I mean, no way to boo the guy. I mean, it was not his fault.
Do you know what? In my career, and I covered Grand Prix for 20 years, every race, I never heard people boo.
Yeah.
This is a new thing. This is ridiculous. And it's not the first booing we've had this season. I don't like it. And a lot of people are putting it down, of course, to this new breed of fans that have come up through the Netflix television program and so on. But, I mean, people boo at soccer, don't they? We don't boo in motor racing, and we shouldn't boo in motor racing.
No, I agree. I agree. I did think to myself, I made a note when I was watching the race. Might not be easy for Charles Leclerc to leave the circuit tonight. He might have to stay there. But
I know.
There's something else about the brilliant drivers that I think we saw in Max, and I wanted to ask you. When they're making on the way up, they also are prone to mistakes, aren't they? Flashes of brilliance, mistakes. But when a driver eradicates his mistake ratio to like 0, like Max is now, it's like he has a force field around that car. Why? How is he not getting involved? It's like the parting of the seas. How is he not getting involved?
Now is the car never breaking down. It's unbelievable, the reliability.
There's not even a jam lug nut when they come in for a pit stop.
No.
Ever a jam gun.
They've just got the stardust all over it. It won't last, Justin. They never do. It could go on for a little while yet.
Yeah, I think so. You mentioned, we mentioned Danny Rick. He, as you said, he was buoyed, if you like, by I think being out of the car, getting the chance to come back in, breaking his hand. There's a lot to play for him. And when you think about the way he drove this weekend, do you think that's the right kind of drive for him to be back in the second seat at Red Bull, or is AlphaTauri the right place for him?
Well, probably, yeah. I mean, we never understood what happened to McLaren, did we?
No, we didn't. Rick? No.
We didn't really understand it, so the car didn't suit him, but most really talented drivers drive around that, or they get their car suited to work with them, and he doesn't do it at McLaren. And I actually thought his career was over. But anyway, there he is. Everybody loves him. He's a lovely character. And, I couldn't be, it's one of the great pleasures of watching that race last night to see Danny Rick going well.
Yeah.
I mean, there were plenty of others and things to warm the heart.
Yeah.
What a drive from Lando Norris.
Yeah, totally.
And a great good drive from Hamilton again, of course. Obviously, that Mercedes is not quite as good as the Red Bull, but they got back close again, haven't they?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, Lewis was very, very keen to praise all the team. He always is, of course, but, I think he was genuinely happy, and I think he knows that car's coming back, on form again now. And don't count him out. I don't think he's won his last race by a long way.
No.
He's a super competitor, is Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, I love the way you say that, because he hasn't won his last race, and he might not have won his last race. He might not have won a race this year, but I tell you what, one mistake, and that is like a pack of wolves, isn't it? Going to overtake them. Everybody is there. Lewis, obviously, I said something the other day that, I think he carries the burden of leading the team a bit, whereas George Russell can be, I'm the young guy, I can just drive. Lewis has a lot of responsibility.
George seems to have got off the boil a little bit. I mean, it was a reasonable drive. It wasn't a great drive. Yes, last year he was. He gets involved in politics. He is put firmly back in his box. He's the number 2, isn't he? There was a short period of time. Says, is he the joint number 1? No, he's back in his box. He's the number 2.
Yeah. It is. It's really impressive to me, though, Lewis's amount of podiums. I mean, I think I said at the top of the show, I think it's like 32 or something 1-2s that Max and Lewis have had in their careers, either one or two, them being first or second runner-up to each other. That's an outrageous stat. I mean, that shows they're both alpha male drivers, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Justin, what about Mega Drive from Lando Norris coming up through there? That boy's going to win a Grand Prix soon, isn't he?
Yeah, I reckon it could be this weekend.
And what an extraordinary season we've had. We started off the season, remember, with Aston Martin right up there. People say Alonso might win another race. And now they're at the back of the field.
Yeah.
What's happened there? I mean, Mr. Stroll and all his money is finding out that running a Grand Prix racing team is not quite like running a company that makes T-shirts and another company that makes handbags, which is where I believe he made all his money.
Well, he did that well. I mean, I do believe that what happened with Aston is they spent all their money at the beginning of the year, came out of the box well, and now everybody else has caught up. It's actually not that they're doing worse necessarily, which obviously they are, but, the others have all just, they've just overtaken them in terms of upgrades and developments
But
no, carry on.
But the money that's been thrown at it. I was at Silverstone a few days ago. I mean, frankly, Justin, the massive new buildings and everything they've built just the other side of the road to the track is unbelievable.
Really?
The sort of money they've spent, they should be on it, really.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, it isn't for lack of money. It's interesting, though. We talk a lot about the importance of teammates, right? And you've seen, I mean, in the Schumacher era, Eddie Irvine was the perfect teammate, wasn't he? He was the textbook teammate. You pick up a win. You pick up the win if the number one doesn't win. You're there to play second. You're there to affect the strategy. Yeah. But the others, not many people have got that right. But you mentioned Prost and Senna in the same car. A lot of the talk has been when they talk about maybe Max having a different teammate, someone more competitive. They all seem to worry about the inter-team rivalry, and if two A-listers are in the cars, that maybe that causes problems. But in my opinion, it only rises the level of the water, doesn't it? Overall, both of them perform higher.
Yeah. The other thing yesterday, what about that crash? I mean, he went in hard, didn't he? And I think you probably have the commentary that we have with David Croft. He doesn't know his left from his right because quite clearly the left rear suspension broke and Crofty said the right broke. I mean, you actually saw it. On the replay, you saw that rear suspension snap. Now, people say, but Antonham. Got to remember, 2 laps later, he was off the track, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Bouncing down the side of the grass. That obviously did something. And so, can't say, what a shame, poor young Magnussen, the car broke on him. He caused that to happen.
Yeah. Good.
He's another one. He's good. He's good, but he's not great, isn't he, Kevin?
He's good, but he's not great. But he's feisty. Not when you come up to overtake him. He is the guy that would try and block Max for 8th position, I love that.
Oh, yeah, he's feisty, all right. And
he's still got his Viking helmet on,
I know. That's another funny one, that Haas team, isn't it, and where they're at.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they're not, well, they've had some great moments and a couple of great results, but I think Drive to Survive opened the window on what it's like to be a mid to backpack team and the demands and the money and calling the boss and getting yelled at. That's probably one of the biggest insights for me from that. But
of course, the other big question on everybody's lips in Grand Prix racing at the moment is, will we have a second American team? Is that going to happen? The Andretti thing.
I don't know.
All these teams, but the pie is going to be carved. We won't get quite so much because there's going to be another piece of cake out of the pie. Frankly, that pie's got a lot bigger recently. So I was so desperately disappointed they don't let Andretti in.
Yeah, we had Mario on the show the other day, and he couldn't talk about it. But I interviewed him early in the year for my little Life with Legends podcast, and he was very optimistic. But it's 200 million just to stake your game at the blackjack table, so to speak. It's an expensive proposition. Massive, these
I know, they're very expensive.
Wow.
Yeah.
One of the things that frustrates me about Formula One right now is this tire strategy stuff. You and I have been around racing our whole lives, so we got a fair chance of understanding soft, mediums, hards. What tires are available throughout the race. But it was actually David Coulthard. He said on the broadcast, he said, Formula One is about going the fastest you can at all times. What's your thought about that?
I hate these tyre regulations. I mean, I wish there was a tyre war still. It was great when there was a tyre war.
Oh, yeah.
But and now Pirelli have got the contract again, we're here. And I don't understand the philosophy, Justin, honestly. Yeah. You're seen on television that has a tyre that only lasts 10 minutes. Why should I go out and buy a Pirelli tyre? I just don't get it. I hate the rules. I think they're just trying to add to entertainment. And this is goes back to Bernie days. You can't on Liberty. I just have one tyre and that's it. Let's not have all this nonsense of having two different compounds. I think it's rubbish. Hate it.
Well, it certainly it just introduces the fact that do you see Lewis? Even though he finished second and pushed, he didn't have a bead of sweat on him when he got out of the car.
I know.
And you go,
So
how
saving tyres.
Yeah,
a bit like your dad in the old Group C days. They're not going that fast because they're saving fuel. Same sort of deal, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Well, you said about Lando's march to the front. Sometimes they say, oh, you can't overtake in Formula One. Some of the tracks aren't good. DRS obviously gives that massive advantage, but it is still a beautiful thing to watch a talented driver make those overtaking maneuvers. And what Lando did pull off in the race was pretty artistic, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I thought overall it was a good race. There was lots of different things happening in it. Just Verstappen, revved off into the distance, didn't he? But it was nice. So there's a lot of things I don't like about Formula One these days, having been so privileged just into reported races in the days of Jackie Stewart in the 70s and then in the 80s with so many different cars, so many different shapes. You could recognize every car. Every car looks the same now because it's basically designed by the same computer program. Just a correlation with the wind tunnel seems to make all the difference. But you still got the best drivers in there. It's still fantastic racing a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But I just think the on a technical side, their hands are tied too much. I feel, and every car sounds the same. So that spoils it a bit for me from the glory days, when I was reporting it from the pit lane and so on. But it's still great racing.
Yeah, I mean, it's the best, for the majority of them, the best drivers representing their era in cars that, like the RB19 is as good as a car that's ever been, domination-wise. But here's a question. Yeah. We saw Max crash. Mag's crash, which obviously was, maybe predicated by him bouncing along the ground, 2 feet off the ground earlier. Because that's what everyone always used to say. Dad said to me about Le Mans, he'd say, when you go off 2 hours into the race and you run the end of the curbs and you have a big hit, he said, you'll think to yourself, oh, thank God I got away with that. 12 hours later, the car might retire with a gear, with a diff or, drive shaft or something. Yeah. And in Formula One, that's exaggerated. Yeah. And the cars have become so strong. But here's something that I thought of really to ask you when I was watching the race. We are seeing incredibly close driving. These guys, that whole thing when Lando went round Russell, with millimeters between the tires. I'm not even sure there were millimeters at one point. And they're going through two corners side by side. It's a finger nail biting moment. And then they touch and they'll keep going a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Now,
remember, these cars are so big, aren't they? These cars are a third bigger than what I was used to in the 80s, 90s, and just recently they've got so big, all because of electrics and so on. and that means take up more track space. So there's less space to overtake on a track because these things are huge.
They are huge. But I had a thought. Do you think that, I mean, every one of those drivers grew up in a simulator-based era. They've also grown up in an era when serious injury or fatalities in Formula One or any of our sports, car racing, has become minimized, thank God, the IndyCar to a minimum. Some obviously tragedies over the last 10 years, but really so slight to before. Do you think that there's a sense of invincibility a little from these drivers compared to the horrific moments we saw in the 70s and 80s?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, drivers, they thought it never happened to me, but, it happened around them and in the back of their minds, they knew how dangerous it was. And different people reacted in a different way. Now, I don't think any of those drivers, leave home, kiss the wife, kick the dog, and think, I might not come back here, which is what happened in the past. So it is safer. It's much better. It's safer, of course. What else can I say about it, really?
No, I think you're spot on. You're spot on. It's thankfully a safer era, which I guess the byproduct is we're seeing incredibly close racing and a lot of actually contact, which is not ideal, but it shows everyone how intense it is. Max just scored. Max just scored his 16th win of a season, and I think something like 31 or whatever it is since the beginning of last year. An unbelievable tally as we come into these last few races. He said something at the end in his interview, didn't he? They said, "What's next?" He went, "What? 17, 18?" I mean, he might as well.
I know.
I thought the clever answer would have been, "How many more races have we got?" And he'd have gone, "Well, I'm going to win them all." What a tremendous thing to see. But the best of the rest, Andrew, they're going to be scrapping like a pack of wolves, aren't they?
Let's see if the Dutchman can be beaten. I hope he can. They say that some of the interest in Formula One's just dropped off a little bit the latter part of this year. And it's because, the predictability of the same winner. People like to see different winners. And let's hope somebody does it, because we might get a big surprise, particularly at Las Vegas. No, it's a gambler's city after all.
I love. Well said. Well, listen, it is time for the Mobil 1 pit stop for the love of driving. Andrew, what's the best move you ever saw a driver make?
Well, I'm not sure if I'd call it a move, to be honest. Keke Rosberg, that fantastic lap he did to qualify at Silverstone, what was it, 87? I don't know, I forgot when it was. At that same track we were at yesterday in Mexico. He pulled off a mega move there, I remember. And Mansell was great at overtaking, but I think that's my answer to that one.
Okay. We've all had some embarrassing on-air moments, and you put yourself in the middle of those. What's your most embarrassing on-camera moment?
Well, on camera, but fortunately it wasn't live, I went up to the famous actor Michael Douglas at Monte Carlo and called him Peter Douglas, which was a bit embarrassing.
God, that would have been good. One of the drivers from the past, one of the legends, who would you like to, if they could just time travel, who would you like to see on the grid today?
Easy. I go show off here.
Okay.
I was driven from the Buenos Aires Autodrome into the city of Buenos Aires, the centre, to a function by Fangio. I also took part in a rally where Fangio flagged us off in Paraguay, and I got to talk to Fangio a little bit in my schoolboy Spanish, but I never saw him race, so I have to say Fangio.
Oh, I love that answer. They have a lot of qualities, but is anything missing from today's modern Formula One driver?
Yeah, stupid, trite answer. Shaving. Only George Russell, the whole grid, actually has a shave in the morning.
Well, look at me. God, I'm going to shave before I see you next time. And
I don't, I heard the other day, I think it might have been Coulthard saying that, the group are all, really friendly with each other these days. So maybe a bit of aggro between drivers. There hasn't been any punching lately. We haven't had a Nelson Piquet to punch anybody recently, have we?
Oh, yeah, that's true. It gets good ratings, gets them a race ban, but it gets good ratings. And for those watching that not everyone's cut out to be a driver or an engineer. Some might want to do what we've done all our lives, which is also do TV. What was the best advice you ever got about being on TV when it came to cars?
Very early on, not to speak too quickly.
Well, that ain't easy for you and I, is it?
I know, but sometimes you don't gabble. Don't gabble.
Yeah, really good.
And don't assume too much knowledge of the people listening, but assume some.
I love it. Andrew, you're such a I mean, it's not like my granddad because we've been best mates on the pit lane.
I know.
I
am young. I am younger than your father, mate.
I know you are.
Just.
I know. He has more hair, though. So let's go with that.
I know. He has beautiful hair. I saw him the other day. Sorry, the shot was a bit wobbly, folks. And actually, the technology we hoped to use, we couldn't use. So we had to try and handhold this. So, but you probably got a few nice pictures behind my face in the office as well.
I can see them. I can see everything lined up there.
Yeah. I try and turn around a bit with it. There's all sorts of stuff in here.
Well, that's a lifetime of memories, and I wish I could take the memory stick out of your head and put it into my head because you know more than anyone I know. So, listen, Andrew, it's been wonderful. Let's catch up soon again socially, and look forward to Brazil. Look forward to Brazil this weekend.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Cheerio.
Hey, race fans, Justin Bell here. So what is it about a race that's so exciting? The breakneck speeds, the constant pressure, the ever-present threat of danger? Or is it, let's face it, simply the driving? Think about it. There's no phones, no laptops, no screens, just the world's greatest drivers, cars, and the ultimate freedom. Yep, it is all of the above. Mobil 1 for the love of driving. Well, that's enough about last weekend. Let's talk about the Grand Prix in just a few days' time in São Paulo, Brazil. It is the final Formula One sprint weekend, which of course puts so many other dynamics into play with that shorter Saturday race. As Max Verstappen said last time out, he said, I think it gives the game away. Doesn't it tell everyone how it's going to roll out on the Sunday? Where's the surprise in that? I actually think he's slightly wrong because we've seen some stars shine through the darkness, haven't we, on the Saturday sprint race. And it does allow people to obviously have a totally different strategy, see ultimate pace in the cars. And Brazil is a festival city. Festival country. Their spirit of life, their spirit for celebrating everything, I think will be evident, very evident as they go down there. And obviously they have had some significant drivers who have literally become the landmarks in Formula One history. I mean, obviously we have Ayrton Senna, you have Rubens Barrichello, you have Gilles de Ferran, Helio Castroneves, and the list goes on. All these amazing drivers, and a lot of them will be down there because those guys know how to party. And it's one of those tracks that really does invite some very memorable racing. 2003, remember the rain race? Outrageous. Then Lewis Hamilton had that last-ditch attempt for his title in 2008. Then there was Sebastian Vettel's run to the 2012 championship. And then Max's all-out attack defense on Lewis Hamilton in 2021. That all happened at that track. So you know there's going to be fireworks with the way these guys are lining up right now. Of course, last year, we saw George Russell's maiden win for Mercedes at the track. I'm sure he will be definitely earmarking this one. He does well at this track, and I'm sure it'd be nice to double Pete, as they say here. But for me, obviously, with Lewis only 20 points behind Sergio Perez right now, that's going to be one of the big storylines. He's catching fast. So many things are going to happen. My opinion, or my anticipation forecast for the weekend is, I think a real scrap is brewing. There are 3 teams. I'm putting Red Bull over here in a little silo, all on its own. But I think there are 3 legitimate race teams, that's 6 drivers who are absolutely gagging for a win, and it's an all-out attack. And we've seen each of them, whether it's McLaren, Mercedes, or Ferrari, have their moments where they're able to excel. Is it qualifying? Is it the first? Is it being on the soft tires, on the hard tires? Is it a longer run? Are they better in the pits? I mean, McLaren's, what was it? 2 1.8 second stop. I mean, wow, what happened there? Just a couple of races ago. So everybody is performing at the best they have all season. And everybody is capable of winning the race, even up against Max, if one thing goes wrong. And his one lap pace, as we've seen, other than collecting fastest laps like their candies, is in qualifying, he can be beaten. And that, especially from McLaren and Ferrari. But to me, there's this air of resignation that I just don't quite get. This sort of attitude of defeat. And I'm sure the drivers would kill me if they heard me say this. But by that, I mean the Red Bull factor, especially when the Max Verstappen car is heading towards you. As a driver, there's an energy that comes from someone that's dominating, and they just know he's going to go by, if not this corner, the next one. So it's almost like they invite the overtake, and that has to stop, guys, because he has already cleared his championship. You've just got to lock him out and try and maintain track position. And so I really do believe that the teams going into these last 4 races are going to be absolutely doing that. This weekend, there has to be a break for the others. And that's when I think we're going to see the opportunity. So much money, so many points available in these last few races that from second downwards onwards, it is critical that you get the best results you can and beat your teammate, because obviously inter-team rivalry is what makes this work. A great race ahead. It will be phenomenal. I'm sure the on-grid, pre-grid activities will be just totally San Paulo and look amazing. So I'm looking forward to that. Well, talk about pre-race festivities. It's already sort of kicked off here in Las Vegas. I told you about how the Grand Prix track is coming together, but we are in the final couple of weeks before the Las Vegas Concours, held on the beautiful golf course outside the Wynn Casino here in Las Vegas. Let me share a couple of the cars that I know are coming. There's a 1936 Bugatti Type 57 Ventoux, which is absolutely stunning. And that's from the Audrain collection in Newport, Rhode Island. And then one of my favorite cars, I have a beautiful painting of it, actually, the James Bond version, the 1964 Aston Martin DB5. That's just 2 of the examples of cars that are going to be here, cars from the past all the way to cars of the future. So you're going to be so ready. Anyway, tickets are still available for that. And it's really your best way to get involved here at Las Vegas. So don't forget to go to the website, lasvegasconcours.com, and check it out. Well, guys, listen, thank you so much for watching the podcast. And don't forget, like, share, leave a review where you can. That really helps the algorithm move us up and more people get to see the show. As always, thank you to the Wynn Las Vegas for your kind hospitality here, and for Mobil One for the love of driving. I'll see you next weekend. Take care. Bye.